Hey everybody, and welcome back. It's time to muscle our way through the February doldrums with the best stuff we know, funny childhood nostalgia here on Not Your Mother's Goose. I'm Topher Goggin. Coming up today, we've got something for everybody. So much that I actually need to go back and check the list. We're going to protect Gotham City with Batman, we will rock-a-bye baby, we'll put Humpty Dumpty back together, and we will play a classroom game of 7-Up. Plus, we'll have a check of the news and introduce you to the product that you need so that you too can have a sheep that's white as snow. Before we go any further, though, I do have a somewhat bittersweet announcement. When the folks at Dart Frog Books first called me in the summer of 2020 to ask if I thought I could turn the original Not Your Mother's Goose book into a show, I told them I thought I might be able to get 10 shows out of it, a number that I quickly revised to 8. This show that we're doing right now is episode 47. Alas, I do fear that at some point there is probably a limit on the number of Pinocchio jokes one can write and still be funny. Some of you are thinking, yep, you're right, that was back around episode 17. Regardless, we are getting to the point that the show should wrap up before we jump the shark and do a tournament of Disney bathrooms. So here is the plan. We'll point the show towards a huge grand finale in episode 50. 50 shows of Little Boy Blue jokes seems sufficient. That means 3 more shows after today, which will consist of 2 normal episodes, plus 1 more Rapunzel's Jukebox Behind the Music special with Andrew Mitchell. And fear not, even once we're done with full shows, the goose will still be loose, as Not Your Mother's Goose is going to live on via YouTube. We'll release some of our favorite show segments there, plus new bits here and there if I think of anything good. If nothing else, Andrew and I do have about 10 more jukebox songs in the pipeline, and so far Drew hasn't gotten tired of making them, so those will keep right on rolling. I'm hoping I can convince you to roll over to youtube.com/@, as in the @ Not Your Mother's Goose. So youtube.com/@ Not Your Mother's Goose. And then subscribe and turn on the notifications so you'll be alerted whenever we've got something new coming out. As I said, this is kind of a bittersweet announcement, but thank you to everyone who has come this far with us. We're going to end up with more than 20 hours of material, which ain't too bad. That being said, we are not done yet. We got a lot to cover today, so let's get on with the show. Batman. We shall now devote 27 episodes of the show to breaking down every version of Batman ever created. Or perhaps not. Let's cut to the chase. We have this guy named Bruce Wayne. And let's establish that Bruce Wayne is the most boring name for a superhero ever. If you look through a high school yearbook and find a picture for someone named Bruce Wayne, I'd bet on him winning most likely to help you file your taxes rather than most likely to kick some ass. But anyway, Mr. Wayne has a less than ideal childhood, again, partially because he's named Bruce, but mostly because his parents get offed right in front of him. And I am very sorry about that, Bruce, but you really don't have to become some sort of justice vigilante while dressing up like a creepy flying mouse. Of course, before Bruce becomes Batman, first he has to become a bazillionaire, which he does, despite the fact that I have no idea what kind of useful products Wayne Enterprises supposedly makes. So maybe he was doing funky work on those tax returns after all. But anyhow, once Bruce is slightly richer than Scrooge McDuck, he decides to start moonlighting as a crime fighter around town while wearing a bat suit. Sometimes with a lot of chest anatomy. I'm talking to you, Kilmer and Clooney. Rubberized outfit in tow, our buddy Bruce sets out to rid Gotham City of its criminal elements, and this town has quite a corner of the periodic table of slime. It's as if everybody at Comic-Con decided to join forces to rob a 7-Eleven. We've got a man who pretends to be a penguin, a guy with half a face following a hands-on chemistry lesson, a guy named Bane that looks like the Incredible Hulk went shopping at Darth Vader's garage sale, the sometimes questionable Catwoman, a plant master, and Arnold Schwarzenegger in an ice suit. Then, riddle me this, why do we need both a Joker and a Riddler at this comedy club, the latter of whom pioneered the fashion trend of wearing suits covered in question marks before that Matthew Lesko guy started making TV commercials wanting to sell you a book that would help you get a free government loan for your business teaching goats to read. Of course, a man thinking he could stop supervillains just by donning a bat suit, that would be ridiculous. to have a fighting chance, he's definitely going to need a Bat-themed car. And depending upon your make and model, the Batmobile is a various mixture you might get from crossing a DeLorean with the 1970s Lincoln Town Car, which ironically was the main design formula at Oldsmobile before they closed. There was also one time that Batman went with a version that was pretty much half a tank, then mixed in with some parts from that ugly Tesla Cybertruck that seemed to be based on drawings made by a third grader or someone riding test track at Epcot after spending a little too long drinking in the countries. Now, once you've got your Batmobile, you'll want a Bat Cave to park it in, and also to store your equipment like some Bat-logoed throwing stars and other things out of Wile E. Coyote's Acme catalog. Bruce Wayne keeps his servant Alfred on staff to keep an eye on these items, though I do think that the DC comic folks missed an opportunity to give him a famous butler alter ego, like Bat-Butt, complete with its own cheeky costume. Also, don't be forgetting to hire a bird-named sidekick directly from the circus, but maybe don't mention that to Robert Smigel from SNL. So there you go. Pretty much everything you need to make a Batman. Where you go from there is up to you. Comic books, 8 gazillion movies, a TV show with Adam West that could win an Emmy for best media use of the words pow and blammo. We got it all. Go turn on your bat signal. Just make sure it runs on LEDs so Gotham can keep the power bill under control. This is now episode 47 of the show, which means if you're a Star Trek or Alias fan, you're expecting some really important revelation in this newscast. If you figure out what that revelation is, please let me know. But perhaps you'll find it in one of these headlines. Old Mother Hubbard says hotel minibar major improvement over cupboard. King of Hearts going as Headless Horseman this Halloween after foolishly beating Queen at croquet. And turning to local court news, Mario pays record-setting fine. Local plumber Mario Pipetti appeared in Mushroom Kingdom traffic court yesterday, rolling in with a wheelbarrow full of gold coins he had collected to pay off a record-setting fine. Responding to a public records request, Court Clerk Larry Koopa noted that Mario had received an astonishing 6,880 tickets for littering, mostly for leaving banana peels on highways. After paying, Mario hid his face and tried to leave by a side exit before eventually acknowledging reporters. He admitted that his driving record is, quote, not too great, but said he'd much rather pay a few tickets than be a consistently slow and annoying embarrassment like Luigi. He was then immediately obliterated from behind by a blue turtle shell thrown by an unidentified man in a green hat and overalls. Mario is, of course, not the first local go-karter to run afoul of the law. Just 3 weeks ago, Wario was booked on suspicion of bank robbery after entering the Bowser Savings and Loan to drop off a gift box with an upside-down question mark to the staff members working near the vault. Shifting gears as we head to break, we haven't generally turned to influencers in our ads here on the show, but today it's time to make an exception. I didn't even know she had started making a career out of online posts, but if you're struggling with messy, muddy animals, it looks like Mary Had an Instagram has just the post for you.
Hi, it's your friend Mary. You know, the one with the lamb. Folks are always asking me, what's your secret? How do you get that fleece so white? Well, here's the answer. You've heard of Woolbrite, but now it's time to try Woolbrite, the laundry detergent guaranteed to get your sheep as white as snow. Now, let's be clear. Don't put your sheep in the washing machine. That will totally burn up the motor. Woolbrite might be hand wash only, but it's the solution to all your cleaning needs. Woolbrite is safe on colors, so whether you've got a black sheep or a big blue ox named Babe, it's perfect for you too. If your little lamb's fleece is yellow as snow, you know what I mean. It's time to make a change. Head to the laundry aisle for some Woolbrite and have your little lamb follow you to the washroom today.
Welcome back to the news on Not Your Mother's Goose, and one more thank you to my cousin Trish for yet another fun ad. The idea of turning the Mary character into an online lightweight was totally hers, and I absolutely loved that. Now that our sheep are sparkling, let's get back to more stories below the fold. After hours Disney guests shocked as Cinderella Castle turns back into Motel 6 at midnight. Pied Piper Plumbing goes out of business after rats found in pipes. And from our seniors division, AARP seeks men for singles night. The fairy tale chapter of the AARP is putting out an all-points bulletin for eligible bachelors, looking to boost attendance for its local singles night next Saturday. We've got eligible ladies galore, said activities chair Julie Reynolds. Old Mother Hubbard, the old lady that lives in a shoe, the old lady who swallowed a fly, that granny that owned Tweety Bird, they all show up every week. Let me tell you, Old MacDonald has been killing it, especially since Old King Cole got called for his bowling league instead. Reynolds promises a bevy of activities to entertain guests young and old, but mostly old. Whether folks skip to My Lou with the band or play a game of knick-knack for a great prize like a spatula, we'll have it all for you. We used to have bingo, but had to cancel that after one of the farmer's dogs kept thinking people were calling his name-o. The action gets underway at 4 o'clock in the barn out back at Rip Van Winkle's. Reynolds advises guests consider a nap to prepare as the fun continues late into the night before wrapping up around 6:30 p.m. Rockabye Baby. On our last show, I tossed out I've Been Working on the Railroad as a candidate for the biggest piece of musical nonsense ever written. But I also left an asterisk on that saying, well, except for Rockabye Baby. And it's time now to address that as a follow-up. There are plenty of songs out there that don't mean what the average person on the street initially thinks they do. Otherwise, people would not be playing You've Lost That Loving Feeling as a song for a dance at their weddings. But that all pales in comparison to Rockabye Baby, which is surely, without a doubt, the world's worst lullaby. And this one is not just a case of me growing up and later realizing that something I loved as a kid is actually half a bubble off. This thing creeped me out when I was 3. Just go through it. Rockabye Baby, in the treetops, when the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all. This is what you're singing to little kids? Kids you want to fall asleep and not come wandering back into your living room half an hour later? What are you on? There are also some major engineering issues that need to be discussed here. Your thought is to hoist a cradle up in a tree and have it blow around in the wind? How exactly is that going to work? How are you even going to get the baby monitor up there? It's out of the range of the Wi-Fi. Also, then we bust the tree branch and tumble the baby to its doom, which, just as a side note, would seem to mean that these folks have left the kid out in quite a windstorm. Child Protective Services is not going to be impressed. The only thing I can think of is that this song must have been written by one of those 1-800 lawyers to grease the skids for a TV campaign that we're going to see pretty soon. Have you been injured by getting dumped out of the trees by your utterly negligent parents? Call me at... You get the idea. Humpty Dumpty. Today we're bringing back a segment from a long time ago called Nursery Rhyme Repair, where we take a look at a nursery rhyme, point out all of its faults, then pretend to fix them while actually probably just making it worse. Up today, Humpty Dumpty. This, of course, is a rhyme that everybody knows by heart. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. I know that, you know that. Lewis Carroll even knew that and put Humpty into Through the Looking Glass. But I've got some questions. First of all, you'll notice that there is nothing that actually tells us that Humpty is an egg. Actually, if you dig deeply enough on the internet, you can find somebody that will tell you he was actually a cannon of all things. But if we stick with the I am the Eggman theory from John Lennon, we still have the issue of what an egg was doing sitting up on the edge of a wall in the first place. This does not seem OSHA approved to me. Where are the railings? Seeing how your average egg costs about $11 these days, I will tell you that mine will be staying on ground level. Next, what exactly is going on with the medical care in this community? If I fall off a wall, I would prefer that the first individual working on my repair would not be a horse. Someone please call all the King's EMTs and possibly the King's orthopedic surgeon, or at least the King's glue manufacturer. Finally, though, and this is my real qualm, this is just not much of a conclusion to the plot. If you're the writer, you're going to have a hard time optioning the movie rights since, well, we give up, is not really a barn burner of a conclusion. Seems to me like the least we can do is give this story some kind of an ending, even if it's a bad one. So how about this version? Humpty Dumpty looked like an egg. Humpty Dumpty busted his leg. So all the king's horses and all the king's men gave smashed up Humpty right back to the hen. Seven Up. Okay, this is totally a late addition. I had no intention of writing this segment. I had plenty of material already, but I have recently learned about a nefarious scheme scamming second graders around the country. And I am not discussing that ridiculous unwritable shape they made up for a cursive capital T. I am talking about the apparently rampant cheating at the game 7 Up. If you're not familiar, here is how 7 Up, the Uncola of classroom games, works. 7 people are selected to go to the front of the classroom. That's where you want to be and where you want to stay. The rest of the class is told heads down, thumbs up, and then leans over their desks in the full nap position that was popular amongst some of my old pre-calc students. They then hold their hand on the desk with their thumb up and wait. The 7 folks from the front then weave in and out of the aisles like a lost husband sent to buy some imaginary spice like basil at the grocery store. Along the way, each person taps a thumb. The tappee then puts their thumb down to indicate that they've been picked. Once all 7 selections have been made, the teacher says heads up, and the people with the 7 downed thumbs stand to face off with the 7 tappers in the front. The goal is simple. In one try, guess who tapped your thumb? Get it right, you go to the front. Miss, you're right back to putting your head down. As you can imagine, the strategy in this game is fairly limited. You have to make your guess solely off of how your thumb got tapped. Did you get a nice gentle hello, or a whack your thumb and turn it purple hammer blast? Occasionally you'd notice that the tapper had like creepazoid cold clammy hands, so if you could keep an inventory from the previous 7 Up games over the school year, maybe that was going to help. But other than that, or I guess like a World Series of Poker style stare down, you were just looking at a 1-in-7 crapshoot. Or so I thought. I am still worked up about this because I never understood how my honest self was so much worse at this game than everyone else. But while I was discussing this with my friends not long ago, I got verbally mocked for not knowing the 7 Up cheat code. All these second graders, future Houston Astros apparently, I guess sat there with their heads pointed down at the ground, but with their eyes cracked so they could peek at shoes. What the heck, man? Come on. When they got picked, they'd stand up, examine the footwear up front, and select accordingly. Game over. This is so underhanded. I am still steamed about this. There needs to be a suspension or something. I am definitely calling Mrs. Amstutz right now and filing a report. The Old Woman Who Lived in a Shoe. I'll tell you, for a short little rhyme, there is a lot going on here. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. Then you get the next couple of lines, which vary, but they usually don't go so hot for the kids, especially if they're the types who do everything possible to delay bedtime. Wikipedia has its usual bullet points for this, most of which involve trying to figure out who the old lady might be, and coming up with a variety of royals that just had a lot of children. They also toss in a Russian lady from the 17th century who supposedly gave birth to 69 kids over the course of her lifetime, which is a lot, crazy, implausible, lying. But if she's the one, this shoe had better have been the size of one of Shaq's, let's just say that. And actually, that's the part of the story I think we need to focus on. How exactly does one come to live in a shoe? Like, do you go to the realtor and ask for shoes in a certain price range, and then he initially makes you look at some dilapidated flip-flop so it seems like an upgrade when he shows you the Nike? And what kind of shoe is this? I mean, is it just a sneaker? If it's a high top, does that count as like 2 stories? Does a stiletto have to be handicap accessible with an escalator to get you up to the heel? And what about clogs? Are those like having a carport instead of a garage with a door that closes? I got a lot of questions here. When I was a kid, shoe shopping was a big deal. You'd better believe I was one of the ones trying to convince Mom to let me wear those new shoes straight out of the store, even if I couldn't get the Reebok pumps. But this is where it seems like the old lady can think about an upgrade. First of all, there is no need for putting up Christmas decorations if your shoe is one of those LA lights that light up. And let's not forget about the option of a motorhome, namely those Heeley shoes that had the retractable roller skates down in the basement. Move into one of those, you can pack up the whole family and road trip. Ultimately, though, I think the most important thing is that the lady should be glad she didn't have to live underwater, because then she might have had to move into a flipper. And with that, we have sadly come to the end of another episode of Not Your Mother's Goose. Only 3 shows to go, wow. Come back next time for a show straight out of the to-be-determined bin. Will it be a new behind-the-music special for Rapunzel's Jukebox? Or will it be a normal show, possibly featuring the cast of Scooby-Doo and Peter Piper? Or maybe the cast of Scooby-Doo unmasking Peter Piper and determining that he's actually some mean guy from up the road that hates pickles. Or peppers. Whichever one that would be. I'm not sure. I guess I should figure that out. And figure out which one of those 2 shows we're doing next, because the other one will be episode 49. Anyway, remember to get on over to youtube.com/@NotYourMothersGoose and subscribe. That way you'll be able to keep on following once the show is done, as we do continue to do some new stuff. And don't despair, we've still got new full shows to take you all the way through the end of April. Until then, I'm Topher Goggin, and the Goose is loose. Thanks to Cousin Trish for the help with Woolbrite. We'll see you next time for episode 48 of Not Your Mother's Goose.